Okay, so in this tutorial, we're going to learn how to start working with this cylinder shape. And I want to do this because this shape allows us to create an enormous range of products, really everything from glassware and water bottles to rockets and robotic arms. Now, keep in mind that this is the third tutorial in this series, and this tutorial will assume that you've watched the other two tutorials first. Both of those tutorials can be found in the description below. Now, in this tutorial, we're just going to keep adding on to the things that we've already learned, and specifically, what we're going to do now is we're going to learn how to use the Revolve tool, offset construction planes, the projection tool, and the Loft tool, to name only a few examples. So let's jump in. So the first thing we're going to do here is we are going to create a cylinder on our canvas. Now there are a few different ways that we can do this. I'm just going to show you 3 different ways, and then you can decide which approach you like the most. And again, this varies often depending on your specific use case. Now the most straightforward way to do this is to click on the top view here and then click on sketch. Now let's click on circle, and then what we'll do is we will go to our origin point. Now let's create a circle with a diameter of 4 inches. Now let's exit sketching. And now what you can do here is simply extrude this circle up. And as you can see here, if you do that, you'll have made a cylinder. Now, if you wanted to add a top to it or some type of lid, so for example, imagine this was some type of sports water bottle of some kind, what we could do is we could simply click on the top face here and then press O on our keyboard to use the offset tool. Now from here, we can just move this in, and then what we can do once we're done that is we can just kind of extrude this up. And now we have the basics of some type of lid here. So we created this shape using circles and the extrude tool. Now let's delete everything that we've created and start again from scratch using a different approach. In our new approach, we'll use rectangles and the Revolve tool to create the exact same shape. Okay, now let's not click on the top view like we did before. This time let's click on front. Now let's click on sketch and then select the diagonal rectangle tool. Now let's go to our origin point and let's create a rectangle that is 2 inches by 8. Okay, so now let's click on this rectangle here and then hit V on our keyboard. That's V as in Victor. This will bring up the Revolve tool. Alternatively, you can simply search for Revolve here. Now with the Revolve tool selected, you'll see instructions on what to do next in this little pop-up box up here. Now, if you don't have your face selected yet, start by selecting your face here. Once you select your face, you'll be prompted to select the axis to revolve around. Again, because we started our design at the origin point, we can simply use the center axis here as our center point. So let's click on this blue axis line here, and that's it. Now let's click on done. And then what we can do is we can just rotate around our object here. And notice now that we've just created a cylinder again using an entirely different approach. Okay, so what about adding the lid like we added previously when we were working with circles? Well, that's really easy using rectangles as well. Let me show you how. Simply click on front again up here, and then click on sketch. Now from here, let's click on the diagonal rectangle again. And then what we can do is we can use this axis line as our center point, and we'll draw a little rectangle right here. It will look off center, and that's right, because once we use the Revolve tool on this shape, it will cross over the center line and center itself on this main body here. Let me show you. So from here, let's exit sketching, click on this face, and then click on V again on our keyboard. Now with the face selected, we'll be prompted to select the axis again. So let's do that now. And then as you can see, we're done. So as you can see here, we created the exact same shape as before, but this time using rectangles rather than circles. Now, if we were pushing this water bottle idea forward, we might want to select this edge here and then fillet it, and then perhaps offset this top face again. Remember, click on O on your keyboard to offset a face, and then we can extrude this face in. And now we have the very, very rough beginnings of a sketch of a water bottle. Okay, now there is even another way that we can create cylinders using a tool called the Loft tool. Now to take this approach, we'll first begin by just deleting everything that we've added so far, and then we'll start fresh from our top view. From here, we'll click on the sketch icon, and then we'll select the circle tool. Now here we'll draw a circle that's 4 inches in diameter again. Next, we'll exit sketching, and then we'll click on a blank area of our canvas so we can see this add icon right here. Now from here, let's click on add, and then we'll select construction plane. Now by default, offset is selected, and that's the option that we want to select right now. Next, we'll hide our original sketch and then we'll select this construction plane here as a point of reference for our new construction plane to use. Now we'll click on next, and next, before clicking done, we'll change our angle slightly here, and then we'll drag our new construction plane up 8 inches, and then we'll select done. Next, let's reactivate our first sketch, and now let's click on our new construction plane and then hit the spacebar on our keyboard. Okay, from here what we can do is we can sketch another circle that is 4 inches in diameter. And then once we're done, we should have something that looks like this. Notice that we used our construction plane to build geometry where we currently had no existing surface to build on. And this is one of the primary use cases of the offset construction plane. Okay, so now let's learn how to use the Loft tool. Simply search for the Loft tool and then select the 2 faces that you want to connect. Now I'll begin by selecting the top of this face here and then the bottom of this face here. Now once I've done that, I can select done, and as you can see, I've created a cylinder yet again. Okay, so there you have it. 1 shape and 3 different ways to create it. Now this is important because this basic shape is the main geometry of so many different types of products. So not only could you build a water bottle like we're doing now, but the same shape could help us build something more advanced, for example, like a rocket as well. Now, of course, we need to make some adjustments here, but let's dive in and see how we can turn this water bottle into a rocket, or at least the beginnings of the shape of one. So let's begin by looking at some images of rockets. Now you can do this by going over to a site like Pinterest and then looking through other people's work, but I already have a basic idea of a rocket that I want to create. So I'm going over to Lightloop here, and then I'm going to upload this very rough sketch that I put together. Now in Lightloop, you can prompt this rough sketch into something much more beautiful. And then once you have the design of a rocket you like, you can create a professional studio shot of your rocket using this image to image tool and then using the prompt optimizer to give you the exact style of product that you're trying to create. Now this is hugely beneficial because this product will now be originally yours rather than a copied Pinterest product. Now in my case, my rough sketch had these lines in it, this panel, and this rounded top, because these are the things that I wanted to show you how to create in Shapr3D. Okay, so let's tackle each one of these design concepts in Shapr3D one by one. So in Lightloop, once you've created an image, you can download it by clicking on this button here. And then in Shapr3D, you can import this image to use as your reference image within your canvas here. Now, one other great feature about Lightloop is that if you didn't want to use the main image of your product here, but just wanted to boil this image down to its main lines or core construction geometry, we could do that as well by using this CAD sketch option here, and then simply uploading our image and then generating a line drawing. So we could also upload this line drawn image into Shapr3D as well. We could just create a new folder here for our reference photos, and then we could just add everything that we need to reference here. We can also toggle back and forth between these reference images, or we can just use a single one that makes most sense for us. Now to add an image onto our canvas, what we can do is we can click on our desired point of view. So for example, I'll click on front view here, and then I'll add my image to the canvas. So let's begin by ensuring that we're working on a blank canvas here, and then we'll just quickly create our cylinder shape by clicking on the front view here, and then we'll just draw a rectangle like this, of course mapping our lines to the lines of our reference image. And then what we can do here is we can just revolve this shape around our center line like this, and now we have the basics of the first part of this geometry. Okay, so let's begin by adding these intersecting lines here, which can actually be a little tricky to do on cylinders. But again, because we learned to start a new project at the origin point in our last video, we can now use that to our advantage by clicking on front view here. Now what we can do here is we can click on sketch, and then we can just draw a line right through this cylinder. Now it's important that the line is extended out past the edges of the cylinder. So select the line tool, and then we'll draw our line where we want to create a cut. I'll add mine right here. And then when you're done, simply hit escape to drop the line tool and then exit sketching. Now once you're out, select your line tool again and then select this icon here to make construction. We can do this because we're just trying to use this line to make a cut. We don't need this line to really represent any physical geometry within our build. So by making it a construction line, we're just transforming it into an invisible line that's not part of our product, but something that we can use as a reference or a tool to help us do things like use as a reference or make cuts and so on. Again, now that it's been converted into a construction line, we can exit sketching. Now, once again, we'll select our line and then we'll search for project, and we'll select this option for project edge. Now the line should be selected, this green color signifying that this is what we want to project. Now, once that icon is green, select the body that you want to make the projection on or cut into. I'll select my main body here until it becomes purple. Now you'll see that we have this line going all the way through. So with that completed, I'll click on done. Now, as you can see, I have this line cutting through my main body. Now this allows me to treat these two sections of the body differently. So for example, I could enlarge this section here by clicking on the body and then clicking on offset or scale, and I could change its size. Okay, so what about doing things like adding panels to a surface like this, where the panel that you're trying to project onto isn't flat? For example, if we go over to Lightloop again, we can create more variations of our existing rocket. And when we do that, you'll see that many of these variations have these panels on their main body. So how do we do that over on our design over here? Well, it's actually quite simple. We actually just have to use the exact same projection tool that we used before. So what we can do now is we'll click on our front view here, and then we'll click on an empty space on our canvas so we can see this little add button here. Now, what we'll do is we'll add a construction plane and we'll ensure that offset is selected. Now we need to place this plane on our canvas and we want to align it to one of our existing default planes. But they might be hard to see because our rocket here is in the way. So let's just hide this body here and then let's click on this default front construction plane. Then let's click on this next icon here. And as you can see, a new construction plane has been added. So let's pull it out a little bit here. And then once we're out past our body, we'll turn back on our rocket's body. Now let's click on done. Now select your new construction plane and then hit your space bar to start building on top of this plane. So what we'll do here is we'll select rectangle and we'll just ensure that center is selected. Then what we'll do is we'll draw a panel on this construction plane right here. So I'll just make mine quite small, something like this. And then what I'll do is I'll exit sketching. Now, if I zoom around, you'll see this little panel here, but it's not touching the cylinder. So we need to find a way to take it from this construction plane and project it onto the main rocket body here. And to do that, we use the projection tool again. So let's search for project edge here, and then from here we can select this entire sketch's face. Now this panel sketch should now show up as blue, but if it doesn't, just keep clicking on this icon here until it does turn blue, and then simply select the main body after that until the main body shows up as purple, like this. So as you can see now, we've successfully projected this panel onto this curved surface. Now we can simply hide the sketch and hide the plane so they're not in our way any longer. And now you can simply leave this face obviously as it is, or if you wanted to, you could now extrude this shape in or out to your liking. Okay, lastly, what we're going to do here is we're going to jump back into Lightloop, and what I want to do is I want to look at our variations here, and I want you to notice how many of these rockets here have either pointy or rounded noses. So how can we deal with this within our own designs? Well, again, there's more than one way to do this, but let me show you the most common way. Again, I'm going to start from scratch here, and then I'm going to begin by creating a rectangle shape here. But now rather than revolving this shape immediately, I might want to create the nose shape first. So I'm going to exit my rectangle tool here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this arc tool. Now I'm going to start the arc by clicking on this point here, and then I'm just going to draw it over to this point right here. Now, once those 2 points are selected, we can simply move our mouse to set the angle here, and then we just have to click a third time and the final time to confirm the angle. Now we need to select our line tool to connect this point to this point and this point to this point here. Essentially, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to ensure that this is just one selectable surface, not many different surfaces. We can either do this by holding down the shift key and then selecting multiple faces within our sketch here, or to make this even easier, what we could do is we could just make this one surface by searching for trim and then cleaning up any unnecessary lines, just like this. Okay, so once we've done that, we can exit sketching and then we can select this entire sketch surface here. And again, with that surface selected, we can use the Revolve tool. So let's click on V again and revolve this sketch surface around the center axis by clicking on this sketch surface first and then this blue line second. Now we have our pointed rocket ship. Now, we could of course still do a lot more with this rocket, but this tutorial has been long enough now, and I think this gets us going in the right direction. So I hope you found this valuable. And don't forget, if you're not a professional designer, but you want to be able to create professional 3D designs within CAD software like Shapr3D, head over to Lightloop to start creating one-of-a-kind 2D images, 3D models, and breathtaking product videos of your own work. So that's all I have for you today. I hope to see you over in the next tutorial.